Hi, I'm Katrina, your Pilates teacher at KN Pilates. Today we will have a look at the plank, at what to look out for, a few do's and don'ts. So let's begin. The first plank variation we will look at is the box plank, which I find is quite a nice startup plank, just to sort of get into this and focus on what we need to be doing here. And it's also quite a nice variation that doesn't put too much pressure on the lower back. So if you've tried planks before and you felt the back took a lot of the strain, there's a reason for that, but also with the box plank, it's very unlikely that will happen. Yeah, it's a little bit more supported there. So for this, we come into all fours, hands under shoulders, knees under hips. And if you are familiar with your neutral hip connection here, that's fine, we can go straight into it. If you're not too sure, go through cat a couple of times just to find that alignment. Also quite nice if you feel just to ease into it a little bit more. Yeah. So the hands under the shoulders, the elbows are quite soft, so you try not to hyperextend through the elbows. So you try to use the arms a little bit more here to keep them a bit more neutral. And then we push up in between the shoulder blades, super important. But the shoulders don't come up to the ears, the shoulders stay away from the ears, lengthening the neck. And then instead of looking forward or letting the head drop down, we support the neck. So we're looking just about in front of us, yeah, so a little bit further forwards there. We then tuck the toes under. Now, if your toes aren't very happy with this, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can do this on your extended feet as well, if you need to. Otherwise, tuck the toes under, and then breathe in to prepare. Breathe out, draw the navel in, and lift the knees away from the floor. Now, the higher the knees, the easier this is. And the lower the knees, the more difficult this is. So we're still pushing up in between the shoulder blades, but we're not rounding the back. So you're still in your neutral rib-hip connection, and here you breathe into your rib cage, keeping the navel drawn up, using your lateral breath. Yeah. Get one more breath here, and then lower down. Yeah. And as always, if we work on the wrists, maybe you want to give them a trill in between. Yeah, we're just holding these variations for a few breaths today, just to sort of go through a few, one at a time. So that's your box plank. The next one that you're probably familiar with is the extended one. Yeah, so again, we start in all fours. And if you are on a mat, you want to be at the front of your mat, just to make sure you can fully extend the leg without being on the floor beyond that. Yeah. So here again, find your neutral setup, pushing up in between the shoulder blades. Try not to hyperextend the elbows. Push up, I did say that already, didn't I? Support the neck, shoulders away from the ears. Find your neutral hip connection. Yes, we're pushing up in between the shoulder blades, but not rounding the back. Quite a tricky one, yeah, especially if you're not having a mirror. But that's what we're trying to get to there. And then you extend one leg back. Yeah, make sure that foot is hip width. Draw the navel in and then extend the other leg back. So there's no need to look at your feet. They'll be fine. Trust your feet. Push back into the heels. Legs are really strong. Glutes are switched on. Navel's drawn up just as much as you need to. Keep pushing up in between the shoulder blades and keep the elbows from hyperextending. And then again, breathing into your ribs, using your lateral breath. Yeah, to come out of this, lower one knee and then the other knee. Now, if that is one version where you've experienced that the lower back is a little bit uncomfortable there, the reason for that is probably, most likely, something that happens quite a lot, that the hips are too low. Yeah. So there's two things that I find. If we go into this differently, sometimes we sort of, both legs maybe lift up and then we're sort of in a half down dog and then we don't really know where our neutral is. Makes it so much more difficult to find that ideal alignment to start with, and then we can get into a sort of really uncomfortable position there. So instead, using that neutral setup we have found in all fours, and then maintaining that, here. So if I then relax the hip down, even if it's not that much, this over a few breaths, can take quite, the lower back can get quite uncomfortable there. So that's just because we lost our neutral spine and pelvis, And then the other thing that happens sometimes is the hips are too high up because it's too difficult for us. So then you have to just do the box plank for a bit longer to get that strength. Lower one knee down and then the other to come out of it. Again, maybe give them a stroll. So one thing about planks, which I find very often, is that we have this concept of holding the plank for a certain amount of time. And to be honest, I'm not a great fan of that. I would always suggest to hold the plank for a number of breaths. Then you really have to focus on your lateral breath, making the breath really nice and big, really connecting to your center. Every now and then scan the body to make sure everything is still in alignment, and anything that needs to be switched on is switched on, and anything that can be relaxed, which isn't much in the plank, can be relaxed. So having a much more mindful approach to this exercise, and not just be there and trying to get it over and done with in a certain time. It will just make it very different in the approach, and you will notice that as well if you're used to doing this by time. And then by all means, you can time yourself and see how many breaths is maybe a minute, or how many breaths might be 2 minutes, or whatever time you're going for. But as said, I would much rather just set yourself an amount of breaths you want to hold this for, and then work with that, and then incrementally increase the number of breaths. You're holding the position, but you're not holding your breath. Super important for your plank. There's one more thing. When we do any static work, any static position, the blood pressure may rise a bit, and then when you come out of it, that should normalize again. Just something to be aware of. So we've had those two options, so the box plank and the extended plank. Then we come on to the elbow planks. So here you come onto your front. And then you prop yourself up onto your elbows. And very often here I found that the setup is too wide. You really want to have the elbows under the shoulders for more support. It'll make it easier. Don't make your life more difficult than it needs to be. Anything else is really quite the same. You want to push up in between the shoulder blades, shoulders away from the ears, neck supported. So we're not doing that. You sort of look towards your fingertips. Then the slightly more gentle version here would be to come up onto the knees. So you breathe in to prepare. Breathe out, draw the navel in, and just lift up onto the knees. Still pushing up in between the shoulder blades, shoulders still away from the ears, and still working with our lateral breath. Good. Lower back down. So one thing you might have noticed is I don't do this. And again, I'm not a big fan of this prayer position just because we tend to put all our efforts into this. There's so much tension that goes into the hands. If I'm here, usually that happens. Not so good. So no need for that. In fact, the hands can be quite relaxed. I think that's about the only part of the only muscles that can be relaxed in our plank. So we then obviously have our progression where we tuck the toes under. Just always make sure the feet are hip width. Very often the feet are too wide. So again, just making sure alignment is ideal as possible. We can't really see what's happening, but just sort of gauge that there. Pushing up in between the shoulder blades, breathe in to prepare. Breathe out, draw the navel in, and lift up. Push back into your heels. Legs are really strong, glutes are strong, navel draws up just as much as you need to. Pushing up in between the shoulder blades, push the elbows down, keep the neck long. Focus on your lateral breath. And every now and then scan the body again. Often we forget about the legs or we forget about the shoulders. Yeah. And then lower down. Come back up. And then maybe again just have a twirl. Or maybe have a nice chest stretch. Quite nice after those sort of exercises. Because there's quite a lot of work on the pecs there. Yeah. We then, of course, have a few side lying variations as well, so side planks, side bends, and I'll cover that in a future video. Yeah. If you have any questions, please pop them into the comment section below. If you would like me to cover anything, any exercise or any topic around Pilates, again, leave a comment. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share this with your friends and family if you found this helpful. And I'll see you in the next video.